Hello and welcome to the Little Book of Proptech. And today it is my absolute pleasure to have a well-known face from social media. We've never met in real life, but we've met plenty of times online. Michelle Killoran, how are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. The sun's shining in Cheshire, so we've just got to stay positive.
So, Michelle, you are one of the most positive people I know on Facebook. So you almost beat Tom McGee for the speed at which you reply to most posts, but certainly very active over there. So for those people that don't know you, and you're this is about you personally, but in your sort of professional life at the moment, you're working for a company called UC Homes.
Yeah.
Who have they have like an online viewing platform for agents, don't they? Which no doubt has been quite popular during lockdown, once people weren't able to get out and see properties in person. But your background in estate agency goes back way before UC Homes. So take me back to the beginning. When was the first time you got involved in property?
So I've always sort of tentatively been involved in property because of my family. My stepmother was a well-known estate agent in Cheshire, and my stepbrother still is. So it was kind of something that I always wanted to be involved in. And then I got the opportunity to join Reed's Reins back in 2000. I was just 18, I think. It was quite a few years ago. So over 20 years ago, I joined around when I was 18. As a negotiator, just quickly worked up the ladder, was poached within 4 months when one of my managers became a director at a independent firm. And I've always had that drive and that ambition. And you learn over the years, became a lettings manager because I wasn't able to be a sales manager due to being female. So my drive just kept going. Nobody's beating me down. So yeah, so worked my way through and then up through to branch manager. And I love the property industry. I love helping and advising and growing and educating. And I've worked in many different sectors.
So it's what is it though about property that you'd love on the industry? Because at face value, on our bad days, and when we look at it, and if you're flicking through Property Industry Eye on a particularly vexatious morning where everybody's sort of woken up on the wrong side of bed, you could be forgiven for thinking that this is an industry that has ungrateful clients that are very difficult to please and demand an ever-increasing higher level standard of service that you're able to provide to them. And sometimes an agent's life can be forgiven if you were thinking that it was a little bit miserable. So what is it that you particularly love about it?
You're absolutely right. The bad days are bad days. And for me, it was always, and I worked in so many different areas. You know, I worked in the Golden Triangle in Cheshire for many years, but then I also worked in Bolton. And I think for me, it was about being able to go into someone's home, sit with them and hold their hand from beginning to end. It was the journey process of educating them taking the advice, supporting them. I'm a real people person. So I love to be able to support and grow them. So they'd come to me and go, right, I need to move to London. And I'd be like, right, let's go find your property in London. This is how we're going to do it. We need to get you this solicitor. And it was the journey that I loved and the social aspect of it. And with property, because my father was a developer for a while, it was watching them at the beginning. So sort of seeing it as it is and walking into an empty property going, I can see it finished.
Yeah.
And having that imagination. You probably get across social media. I'm quite a bubbly, loud, quite eccentric person.
Kind of picked up on that a little bit. Anybody interested in a colon cleanse, this is your lady.
And I think, you know, my personality's helped me throughout the years because I always like to come into an office and get everyone riled and come on, let's do this. I'm working for some of the big corporates that really like to hammer you. It's just about going, right, these are the bad days, but what can we get out of it that's good? I loved having a team. I love growing them and getting those sales targets, but smashing it above them. But the most important thing for me was the client recognition and seeing them smile on the day of completion.
It does happen
No,
more often than people think, right?
And And I was always one of those estate agents that would phone the solicitors and go, right, what can I do to help you? I wasn't.
And do you know what? I think that's the most important element of an agent's job, because taking pretty pictures is easy to a certain extent. Doing a video is brave, but once you've done it, you've done it. Agreeing a sale, it's not rocket science negotiation. You will get there in the end, but getting a sale through, dealing with people that don't want to talk to other people, and we're talking principally about solicitors, really. That communication process traditionally, especially if you did start out 20 years ago, then you'll know that 20 years ago, they certainly didn't want to talk to you. Attitudes are changing, but it really makes life difficult. And all an agent wants to do is sort of say, well, are you still waiting for that document? Can I chase it for you? Or can I do something?
And I used to get the solicitors to actually email me the TR1s, get the clients in the office, or I'd go round to their house. And one of the big things, and I know Tom Gilbert's a big advocate of it, obviously there are other people out there, is I used to always make sure that the protocol forms were filled out on the day of instruction, make sure they're chased up. And again, that process reduces it, and it's the liaising with the solicitors. And I remember many, many years ago, I used to phone a solicitor in Bramall, and he'd be like, Michelle, just off. And we built up that relationship that he actually eventually started taking my calls. And it was just that challenge of going, I'm going to make them talk to me and I'm going to work with them. And it really helped my career. And being a manager of sale, I mean, lettings is a bit of a passion of mine because I love portfolio advising and all the crazy lettings law. But it was just having those relationships made our life easier, because the solicitors would actually phone us and go, Michelle, I need your help. She's not returning the calls. I can't get hold of her. And then we'd get the sales through. And my fall through rates weren't 1 in 3 at the time. They were around 12% I worked it out at. So it was a lot less.
It is a lot less. And I think good sales progression and keeping in touch with people is the key to actually keeping a sale together, lowering those fall through rates. And I often think that if we didn't do as much on sales progression as we do, our fall through rates would be a lot higher for sure. Because I think I probably mentioned this with Tom, but one of the things that happens these days is that when you put your property on a portal, and we're going to talk about portals later, don't think you're getting away with that one, okay? But when you put a property on a portal, Rightmove, Zoopla, on the market, Boomin, whatever portal you think you're going to use, that's great. It is your best friend at that point. It is saying to all of those buyers, come and get me, this house is for sale. Once you've agreed a sale with that buyer, it becomes your worst enemy, because it's still waking up every morning and telling your buyer, hey, look at this house over here. I've just seen this one over here. This is something new. In the old days, where you had newspaper advertising, I think it's probably fair to say once you'd chosen a house and sort of fallen in love with it or made peace with it, you would then decide, well, that's it. I'm not looking any further. So you wouldn't bother opening a newspaper. But I think the portals these days, it creates the ability for a buyer's head to get turned a lot quicker than ever before. So I think that person-to-person contact that you talk about, if you lack that in any way, how on earth are you going to be able to take the temperature of that buyer and that sale?
Absolutely. And it's, again, I worked for an online estate agent, weren't any names. And that's, everything you just said resonates it, because you weren't able to sales progress because their motto was, you don't need to. You built up the rapport.
I think I've worked out which an online estate agent you're talking about.
And
now,
because you were paid on instructions, you literally just put on everything. And then you realize that why you're an estate agent, and you're like, I can't service 60 odd vendors plus equal amount of sales going through. It's just not physically possible. So you end up mentally just going, right, I can't deal with this, and losing it. And I said that to my neighbour yesterday. She's selling a property. And I said, look, you need to do what's needed to get your sale through. I said, because this house is coming on.
Yeah.
And if she turns her head because that one's come on the market, she will pull out, even if it's just before exchange.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter anymore. If you see something shiny in the corner of your eye, oh, what's that? Because again, expectations are so high in the UK. It's uncontrollable what people expect, 24/7. Amazon's created this huge genre of I want
Buy it
it now.
Yeah.
Give it me now. I want it now. And I think, the portals certainly have that air about them. I mean, there are some very poor quality advertising, and I do think marketing is key to generate the best price for the buyer.
Yeah.
But I do think, as an estate agent, you've got to be there from beginning, middle, and end. Whether it's you as a valuer, a negotiator, we all play our part as a team together to create that atmosphere.
So I've got circled here on my pad a note that I took right at the beginning of this conversation, and it just says the word woman on it. Okay, which is my very sophisticated way of saying we need to talk about men and women and this industry. I have spoken to a number of different people. And in fact, Simon and I, in our one of our very earliest podcasts that we did when we were still back in that posh studio that he used to pay thousands of pounds for. But we had, I think we had Susanna Maverty at the time. We had Louise Moss in the studio. And I think one of the things that I brought up in conversation was that I'd always thought that our industry is not entirely representative of life in general, and that certain faces got seen more than others, and in terms of promotion, certainly for women, routes to the top were very difficult. It was a very heavily male dominated industry. I think attitudes in general, I'm talking about in life, in the world, are changing. Perhaps not quick enough for our mothers, our wives, our sisters, our daughters, or whoever. But they are changing, and things are definitely going in the right direction. But you grew up in an industry where some of those archaic attitudes towards women still existed. And so when you talk to a sample of women from the industry and you say, hey, what's your experience? Some will have an extreme view and say, hey, I'll tell you now, I have never been paid less than a man. I've always been promoted, and that's just the way that I am. I'm the person that got me to where I am today. And some others would say, no, you know what? I've had to sit through the shittier jobs. I've always been kept looking pretty at the front of the shop, but never been invited into any of the closed door meetings at the back. Women have a place in the industry. So how was it when you were sort of coming up the ranks, and how much of a factor has that been in who you are today?
I think, I have struggled over the years, and I'm a big advocate of mental health, and so I've got 2 mentees that I work with as well. And I have used Agents Together for a mentor myself, because when I started, I had aspirations and expectations because of family members within the industry earning certain salaries. I mean, I don't know exactly what they earn, but they had a good lifestyle, Range Rovers, all the rest of it. So my expectation was set already. And to soon see the difference, and also be told as a woman, you will never be a sales manager or a branch manager, I had to then go into lettings to then progress, because that's where women go. Luckily,
why is that? Why do women get sent to lettings? I agree with you, by the way.
I don't know.
The lettings industry is very heavily dominated. If you're looking for sort of a decent lettings manager with experience, invariably the applications that you get are from a lot of women.
And I think, whether it's the knowledge side of it, I don't know, but I went down that route and actually found a passion for it because of the fast pace and the education and the lettings law. I'm one of those saddos that absolutely loves absorbing it, and then going to a house and going, right, did you know that the law's this? And the guy up the road's like, I didn't even know that, because the other agents haven't got a clue. So it made me stand out and have that drive and success, shall we say, in figures. But the only problem is that on lettings, because the pay salary is so low, that I had to leave because I was told I was earning too much as a lettings manager, and that my commission needed to be cut by 50% to sustain it. I turned an office around 150% in less than a year. So they wondered why I had to then go and find another job, because I'm not going to do this and earn 50% less. And then in sales, there's always this, the basic salaries are less for women, especially where I work. I mean, I was made redundant last year and I was on a good basic, and the approaches I got were shocking. And I turned around to one who was one of my old bosses and said, absolutely no chance am I going to come work for you for that price. I said, if you want a non-experienced manager to run an office, then pay them that kind of money. But if you want somebody who's got 20 years experience with passion, drive, knowledge, and an ability to grow an office from a medium one to a big one, pay them properly, because that extra 5-7 grand actually will pay dividends for you in the future.
And do you think one of the reasons that women were traditionally sort of kept away from the top jobs is because that old notion, very antiquated and unhelpful viewpoint by a certain kind of male, that women are eventually going to want to run off and start a family, and therefore that's going to be extremely expensive, and we don't afford them the opportunities, therefore we keep them where it's manageable.
Massively, because I'm 38. I'm not shy about saying my age, but it took me 7 years to have my daughter. Health reasons, was told I couldn't have kids, 3 operations later, and a miracle arrived. And I had to leave the estate agent I was at during maternity leave, because it was very clear that being a mum was not going to be suitable. Because where I worked to try and get to nursery, I physically couldn't get there in time. They were turning into a well-known corporate, and they are now, because they've got a lot of jobs advertising and people won't work for them. But it was just very clear that being a mum, there was no flexibility. And I'm a loyal employee, so I will check my phone at 9 o'clock at night for emails. I will send emails at 6 in the morning when I wake up. So, having that flexibility to be a mum as well as working, you would get a lot more back from me. But it was very, very clear that after maternity, I had to find alternative employment, because it was not going to work being a mum working for that company.
So that's obviously fairly recent, isn't it? I mean, how old?
She's only 2.
She's 2. Okay, so it's fairly recent. So is there any evidence to you that attitudes are actually changing in practice, or do you think that is just what we say on air, and actually behind the scenes, when it filters down on a branch by branch basis, that doesn't really come out?
I've not seen any evidence of change. I've seen a lot of talking about it, which is brilliant, but I've not seen it in the areas that I have applied for jobs or had approaches. Because as soon as you mention you've got a daughter and you need to be at childcare pickup at 5:45, at the latest 6 o'clock. Oh, right, okay. Well, that's not going to be suitable.
And have you kind of have you done like an A and B test on it? Have you gone to an interview and not mentioned your childcare arrangements at all?
No, I haven't.
See, you're very upfront about it, but I would wonder whether or not you'd be offered that position and then turn around to them and say, well, hey, love to come and work with you guys. Very excited. By the way, do you know I have to be here and here?
Good point. But no.
But it's a shame that you even have to even think of stuff like that, because in this day and age, and I always think about it. It's easy as a man to sort of, and that's the other thing. I listened to a lovely chat between Chris Watkins and Nathan Emerson this morning, and they were talking about the fact that Arla and Property Mart now have 2 very prominent female roles, and I actually think they're making a concerted effort at promoting people to top positions who are visibly, this is going to sound ridiculous, visibly female, but they're female and they are out there, and that they're and almost it's affirmative action. You're saying, look, we need to change. It's not going to change without us saying, we need these people in these roles and doing it that way. But if I've got 2 daughters myself, and when I think about them going to apply for jobs, the thought of them being judged on the level that, they're really capable, they seem really nice, however, she looks like she might want to start a family at some point, and I'm not going to give her a chance, that would incense me. That would absolutely drive me.
And also, it's one of the reasons why I ended up, not going back in the industry. I'm in Proptech now, because there was not one job out there last July that offered me, one, a decent salary for being a good manager, and two, the ability to be a mum. I mean, I've been offered all the self-employed models you can name, but I don't want to be self-employed, because for me, I like the branch environment. I love being the manager and having a team and growing them. And one of my only ever, I've never got to it through what we've just been spoken about, but I've always wanted to be an area manager.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to go into different branches and go, right, what can I do to get this branch working? And to see it like a flower grow.
Yeah.
There's never been any opportunities for that. That could be one, maybe because I'm quite outspoken. You never know. There could be personality clashes. I'm not shy. I will tell it as it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I ended up in Proptech, which is interesting because, again, I'm dealing with estate agents and I love talking to them. And I did a post on LinkedIn actually the other day, just expressing that in the last 12 months, I've learned so much from networking with all these different estate agents, and the self-development that I've done is I'm definitely a completely different person than I was 18 months ago. And I would know what I'm doing more so.
It's fascinating listening to you talk about it, because you can see that you are, yes, you are very outspoken. And I would imagine that some people might find you challenging when they meet you for the first time. But I think Amy Shields from Sprift, who I had a really great chat with the other day, she, in her sort of closing comments or afterwards on social media, she said to me, you know, the problem, it was in the closing comments there, the problem with women in the industry is that they're not vocal enough, that they're not shouty enough, that they're not in your face enough. And there are some that are absolutely, that they're always described as powerhouses, because you're in awe of them when you talk to them, because they bubble forth with all of this positivity, and they're not afraid to open their mouth and give their opinion. But you remind me of that. That's really what it's all about. And
I think I've been silenced over the years because, one, as we grow up, we learn different ways of speaking, and sometimes I've probably spoken out of turn. But also, I don't necessarily think they want an outspoken woman always right at the top, because the men don't want you saying, and half the time they're like, you can't say that. And I'm like, well, we're here to do business. We're not here to faff around. And, you know, it's about making sure we get the end result in the positive way.
You don't mince your words, no pun intended.
No, absolutely. Intended. And, you know, it's one of those that we are where we are, but we've got to learn from what we learn from the past to generate a better future. And I've been sort of doing a lot of mindset, mental health advocating, and working with other people to help them and support their businesses. So, but I watched that interview with Amy, and she's absolutely right. I just think sometimes they employ because it's cheap and easy.
Yeah.
And there are some very, very good estate agents out there, but there are some really shocking ones that are just they're order takers, and they're a waste of time.
I think one of the things is, and I don't think Roper's going to change this in the short term anyway, but I think the barrier to entry into this industry is so low that it is simultaneously the best thing about our industry, and it's simultaneously the worst thing about our industry, because you will get a bright, enthusiastic young David or Michelle walking into a branch at the age of 16, 17 saying, this is me, train me, I want to go and do this. But you will equally get people who are using it as almost the last resort. It's the the last show in town, and their parents will say to them, oh, go and work for an estate agent, earn some commission, that's a good job for you. And I've done a whole load of in fact I've done it for quite a few years now. Always used to do the careers fair at the local high school, and I'd look around this room and be in the middle, and I had everything set up, leaflets about what we do, and ready to talk to kids about how we add value and we help people move and find their forever home, and all this kind of enthusiasm. And I'm sat there twiddling my thumbs, talking to my colleague for most of the time, because the parents themselves don't necessarily see it as an important a career move, as say, or a respected career move as a doctor, an accountant, a lawyer. The biggest queue in the careers fair was for the police, because the hunk of a policeman that they sent, oh my God, the mothers were queuing out of the door.
All you had to do is speak, and they would have gone fine with your
we need
voice.
to come and you need to consider a career in the police, right? But Mom, I want to be an accountant. No, we're going to see this guy. But estate agency was always and the kids that did come to the estate agent's table, the parents would almost apologetically go, listen, he's not very academically good, and you know, you don't need to be academically talented to get into a estate agency. Talk to my son about it, and gladly I will do. And do you know what? Some of the best estate agents in the world today are in that position because, yes, they're not academically amazing, but they've got really good people skills. They've got really good judgment. They know when to say what it is they have to say in order to achieve.
You've got to have a personality, though. I mean, I've interviewed some in the past, and it's like, whoa, there's no personality there. So you've got to have something about you to be able to, for people to want to like you and be with you. But then you just resonate on the fact that the general consensus is we're not valued. And this is one of the things that I've sort of researched more into, is that estate agents aren't valued. So therefore our fees are going down. I say our fees, I'm not an estate agent anymore. But the fees are going down because they want to pay 0.5% because they don't think you do anything. And, you know, if the vendor shows somebody around and they sell it, oh, well, I don't need to pay you because I've done the viewing and I've sold it. So we are missing the core value of value. Estate agents aren't valued.
Do you not think that we've actually been forced into a position where we get better at justifying, you know how you do self-development? So your idea about yourself and your self-worth at the moment is very strong. I've got it written down on this piece of paper here that will not accept a job if you don't pay her, because you know your value.
Yes, so and but that's recent. That's only since lockdown I've done that. Prior to that, I would have accepted a job. But you are right. I've taken fees at 0.5% because I want the listing. Exactly. I now know that if I went into a branch, there's a cast and hell's chance I'm taking 0.5% because I know what I can do. Yeah. But I've had to do that self-development. The company didn't give me that self-development because they're too busy shouting at you, going, you've got to get 1.5%, and that's how it is, and we're corporate, and no.
But do you not think then, as an industry, that we've had our kind of Michelle Killoran moment where we've all woken up and realised that we've been forced to prove to ourselves what our worth is, but also then in turn to the public, and the people that forced us to do that are Michael and Kenny Bruce in a way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah.
In a way, so at least that I know of, and I've had this discussion with many estate agents, and you know, Stephen Brown, who I name check in everything that I do because he's like my Jedi master.
He's amazing.
He's my Yoda, you know. But Stephen, when I met Stephen, Purple Bricks had just started off. It was causing us no end of trouble because the public, they were spending money educating the public that estate agents are not worth the money that you're paying them. And we very quickly had to change our whole mindset, and we had to change our game plan to going back out there again and saying to the public, hey, what we do and what they do is very different. If you want to sell your own house, by all means, go ahead and do it. But this is what you're risking by doing that. What we bring to the table is value. We bring some sort of worth, and we do add value to the process. And so we got better at saying that. And I think all the self-improvement that you see within the industry, say in the past 5 or 6 years, is almost a direct reaction to that particular brand of online agency.
I think so, definitely, because I mean, personally worked for them. So, and it was 2017 that I worked for them. And but yet still coming from a huge history of estate agency, I still wanted to give them that value. So irrespective of this is the model, I still had to sales chase. I still had to get the phone calls at 9:30 at night or a Sunday morning because the searches came in on a Friday. What are you phoning me on a Sunday morning for? To tell me searches have come back in on Friday? You know, the actual customers did is they took it to the next level.
Yeah.
They expected you to be there on demand 24/7, 7 days a week, because that's how they portrayed it. So I think it was a balance of saying, right, estate agents are worth X amount, but they kind of hit the market. But then when I went to a lot of houses where I worked, because it's the lower end of the market, our fees were a lot dearer, because the houses were 80,000, but I'd still be charging them 1,100.
Yeah.
Because it was a recommendation, so therefore the worth came into it.
Yeah.
But I do think they did make a huge impact in the industry. So the value is definitely something that everyone's working at, and I see it more and more so on social media, that people are believing in themselves better. So it's a good and it's a bad side of it.
And what attracted you to that particular? Because at the time, a lot of people went to work for those kind of companies, and I'm not going to mention them again by name, but because there are many of them who became local experts or whatever it is that they're known as. And so, what was it about that model that attracted you as an individual at the time?
For me, it was just after 17 years in the industry, I got bored. That was all it was. I need to be challenged, and to be honest, I actually love the company I work for. I love the location, the branch, but because of the way that everything is the same old. You earn a really good salary one year, so then they look at your P&L and go, right, let's make that even harder. So you're 15 grand a year down in salary. Why? There's no momentum to it. Just didn't work because the markets are different. Yeah. So I literally just got really bored because I'd done well. The office was ticking along, and then I was like, right, okay. And then someone approached me saying you can earn more money. I earned the most salary I've ever earned in the industry doing it, but it wasn't job satisfaction because I couldn't service the clients. So it was just because I got bored and thought, right, sorry, I'm going to go and try it and see what happens.
And in terms of, so obviously you mentioned, if we were to fast forward now and come forward 2-3 years, whatever it may be, and you're now agents together as a thing, you have benefited from it because you've obviously had help from them, and you are also giving back because you're giving help to others through that. It's a tremendous thing. There's no two ways about it. But how much of that was needed in order to sort of counteract all the kind of all the psychological damage that had been done during the time that you had worked in a model that wasn't giving you the support on a day-to-day basis?
Massively. It was one of the worst mental health years that I've ever experienced in my whole life. And I walked out because mentally I couldn't sustain it, and I was burnt out. So giving back at Agents Together, I think they had to, because there's so much mental health, and it wasn't just me, it was within the whole, everybody. There was a lot of us in the same situation.
Do you think they were aware of that? Were they conscious that they had a problem?
I didn't get the impression anyone cared. And when I voiced my opinion, there was one person that showed they cared, but it was too late. I walked out. And maybe I shouldn't have walked out. It was wrong. But at the time, mentally, I couldn't cope and had to leave because I wasn't leaving the house. I was sat at home and I couldn't leave. So I had to just go. But because it hadn't gone above me, it was too late then to go, right, we can sort it. I just went, right, see you later, I'm going. And there was, it's only one person left out of my group who still works for the company. And she's really good. She's doing really well. But financially, I'm driven through job satisfaction and income. I'm from a background where we go on holidays, everyone drives nice cars in this materialistic Cheshire world. As much as I'd like to say, I don't like it. Yes, I do want the big house, and I want an even nicer car, and I want a place in Wales.
The cover of Cheshire Life magazine right here.
I'll have to get some Botox and my lips done, which is not me. But so yes, I think it is needed, and I think it's showing them then they've grown. I've spoken to them both. I was trained by both of them at that company, but I think it shows that they've grown.
Were they hands-on? Were they actually sort of involved?
Very, very physically on the
Because I'll be honest, with Boomin, one of the things that impressed me about their presentation is that they were both on that and kind of driving it from the front, which I never really expected.
They're very, very hands-on. They were in the training session when they broke you for 2 weeks and then reformed you as different estate agents. They were there. Yeah. So yeah.
So there is a process that they go through where they literally break you out of that mold and they reprogram you as the Manchurian candidate, where they mentioned the purple word and then you suddenly go, I must go and kill the president of Allah now.
Yeah, the purple love was not. I'm not a big fan of all that crap. It was just too much. This purple, and I was like, seriously, shut up.
But that is interesting, because I think that they were, and I don't think I can be sued for saying this, but they were notoriously litigious. They would defend their reputation with lawyers left, right, and centre. So really, not a lot was said during the time that they were at the helm of that particular company. And what struck me was that when they came out with Agents Together, although I love the charity, I love some of the people behind it, I really do. I mean, Stephen, Chris, you, I've got a lot of time for all of you, but it somehow it niggles me and it eats away at me that the reason that charity exists is because I think they realized they had a problem reputationally. And one of the best ways to do it was to support the industry, for which I say amazing, well done. But it was the quid pro quo that it was unwritten there that kind of got to me a little bit. And I've voiced my cynicism ever since. And
I think you're not on your own though at all, because I got involved in Agents Together because I needed it, and asking for help is not seen as this dark, oh my God, you're asking for help, you're a failure. Whereas 10 years ago, I wouldn't have asked for help because I would have been deemed as a failure.
Yeah.
And, trying to be a positive and see them in a positive light, I do think they needed to give back. And I think maybe they've seen some errors of their ways, or maybe they see it was a bit too harsh and that the staff mentally all had breakdowns practically and had to leave. So I think they're just trying to give back and they don't know how to give back, but this is a way of giving back. And because it's supporting so many people now,
I like that.
It's a way of actually saying, right, okay, we are giving back. And this is how we're giving back, is by having this free support for you. And, the guy, Sam, Agents Together, is just amazing. He's so supportive, puts you with the right people. So I think turning them into a positive light, because everyone's very quick to criticize, but I've physically been there. They're giving back because they know they needed to, and this is the way. And they're quite clever in the way they're doing it, because they could just go, right, there's 10 million quid towards some mental health charity, but actually they've set it up themselves for estate agents to give back, to try and redeem themselves.
So it's and therefore I think that's money worth taking, and it's a price worth paying. And if you are going to hold your hands up and say, look, we weren't always right about it, I'd still love to hear them say more vocally that they shouldn't have torn down the industry as much as they did. But I think that
you're not going to get that.
You're not going to get that. But some of the rhetoric behind Boomin and some of the messages coming out of that now seems to sort of indicate that what they want to do is support agents, and that they understand that, and they're approaching it from a different point of view. Brings me on to another section of my show that I like to call Agree or Disagree.
Ooh.
Where I read out a statement about the property industry and you have to say if you agree or disagree and why. Okay? You're up for this?
Cool, let's go, do it.
Okay, Michelle Killoran, agree or disagree, a leopard can never change its spots?
Disagree.
And
because I used to be known as Killer. I was very rah, 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 rah. And as I've grown up, I've learned to change my attitude, change my approach, and change my thought process. So I believe I have changed who I am because I needed to grow further.
Awesome answer to that question. I like that. And that kind of neatly wraps up what we were just talking about. So I'm going to be patient and give people a chance to prove themselves. Yeah. That was awesome. Okay. Agree or disagree, because I think this is probably correct about you. Once an estate agent, always an estate agent.
Yes. Yes, I defend estate agents. I even pretend I'm still one. I read Property Eye every morning. I read Brief Your Market. I'm all over the estate agent groups going, yes, this is what I would do. It's in my blood. My stepmom was a very successful estate agent. She still works one day a week in a well-known one in Cheshire. My stepbrother, again, extremely, really good estate agent, and still is a manager now. So yes, it's in my blood, and I wanted to be an estate agent, sadly, and I just love it. I think it's a great industry. Bad days are bad, good days are good. But now we know there's so much change in the industry, we know how to try and balance it as much as possible.
Agree or disagree? Portals don't sell houses, estate agents do.
Agreed. I think it's a way of brand awareness and it's an awareness technique. But I can't name his name, but he's not far from me, a fantastic estate agent who's selling houses on Facebook. The guy's name's all over the place, and he's got, he's proving that Facebook's now a place. Social media has grown. It's not about saying what we've had for lunch and what we've had for dinner. People are buying off it subconsciously, and have been for years, but now it's now in the forefront of everyone's mind. So I think that portals are still needed, absolutely. Because people go to the portals, but I don't think it's, I think it's the estate agents who communicate, present their properties in the best light will sell.
You know what? Textbook answers to all of these questions. I'm going to print them out, and they should hand them out to estate agents. This is great. Agree or disagree? There is no room for introverts in our industry. You're either out extrovert or nothing.
No, I think there's room for both. Because I used to have a valuer who wasn't as crazy, loud like me, but then I would adapt myself when it's older people because I wouldn't want to scare them. But then, there was a time when I could go to a house and be a bit too powerful, so I would send my valuer, because on the phone call I knew that I would actually overpower them. As much as I would adapt my personality and my conversation skills, I think sometimes you've got to have a balance of personalities in the office. Not necessarily sexes, because I don't think whether it's an all-woman or all-man office, it makes a difference. But I do think women valuers are better anyway.
We've always thought this for a long time, that when booking a valuation, if you can get an idea of the type of person you're talking to, it would make sense to match them up with somebody that they resonate with. People buy people, and part of that technique is to mirror those people as closely as possible.
Yes, people like you and buy into you. And in fact, it was Chris Watkins that gave me some advice last year when I spoke to him, and it's sat with me since. People will never remember where the company you work for, Michelle, but they'll remember you.
Yeah.
Grow your brand awareness. And people used to come to me, and they'd track me down because it was me that's selling the property, or me that was trying to find one for them. And it was never the company, because they couldn't remember who I worked for.
Okay. Agree or disagree? Online agents still have their place in the industry.
I think the word online agents has become very ambiguous now, because the word online agent, they are online because they don't have an office, but they're not really online because they still physically go and do everything. So I think there's a place for everything, because now with lockdown, it doesn't interest me to go to the Trafford Centre, or it doesn't interest me to go to the pub and sit with a load of drunken people. So, well, I do want to drink lots, don't worry. But in like wine bars and restaurants. So I think there's a place for everything.
Not forgetting that you're Cheshire Life now. You need to be in a wine bar or a restaurant to have a drink.
I just need to earn the income to match it,
You can't sit on a park bench with a bottle of White Lightning anymore.
Oh, I know.
This is the big league now.
I need to get the wine and have nice wine. But
I think that's more or less me done with those questions, because it's fascinating, and I think we're going to end up talking again, because I would like to catch up with you later on in your career, and just to I would like to see things changing for people like you, and by people like you, I mean people like my daughter, my wife, my sister, whoever it is that works within our industry. That feels in any way that they haven't been given the same opportunities that I would have been given. And I would like to see that happen. I'd like to see that progress. And I'd like to hear you confirm that it's going that way. Because if not, we need to do something about it. But I do believe there is a lot of positive and affirmative action being taken on it. And I don't believe that it's all just conjecture and talk. I think that there is a willingness to change these things. And actually, this is going to sound ageist now, but we're getting to the stage where the men with the unhelpful attitudes that are never going to change are the dinosaurs anyway. And they're getting to that stage where they're going, whether they like it or not. That is just a change. And you've got this next generation of estate agent coming up. And I love the fact that self-development is such a buzzword within the industry, that everyone's talking about what they're reading, what they're listening to, podcasts, promoting things like exercise, because as you know, I am almost a semi-professional athlete.
Absolutely, pure God.
But I was listening to, who was listening? Nicola Boomin does a podcast with, and yesterday she had on my good friend, Andy Davies, who runs an agency called James Neve. I think he's in Walton upon Thames. If you're in that area, check him out. He's an excellent agent. But he was talking about that he had this whole sort of battle with his body image and so on. And he'd always been a bigger guy. But the turning point for him during lockdown was he'd lost his dad to cancer, I think, and obviously a terrible episode. But out of that, he decided he was going to take better care of himself. And lo and behold, my Andy Davis, my mate, is wearing skinny jeans. Can you believe it?
Wow.
Yeah.
You obviously borrowed them off your washing line.
Well, what I've done is I've deleted his number from my phone because I don't have skinny jean wearing friends. You see what Simon Whale wears? No, that's a friend. That is a friend.
Hilarious. I love it.
Okay, I've got now two last questions that I now have to ask every guest.
Okay.
So one of them is that you've very kindly given me an hour of your time. If you could have an hour of anybody's time, either dead or alive, in the industry or out of the industry, who would you choose to spend that hour with?
Ooh.
I mean, obviously it was before now, it was David Mintz.
Well, it was. I've been desperate to speak to you online. And, you know, there was somebody else I was desperate to speak to, and bless her, she speaks to me now, which was Zoe Bywater.
Oh, there you go.
And she's lovely. She's been really, really helpful to me.
She's great.
Oh, my God, that's a really tough question. I don't know how to answer it because I speak to so many people.
Well,
in terms of having...
To tell you what the most frequent answer to that question is, most people choose a dead relative and say, "Oh, I'd love to catch up with my grandpa or my grandma."
In the industry, so.
Well, no, it could be out of the industry as well if you wanted. Could be anybody.
I mean, the only people I really want to speak to out of the industry are my dogs. I miss my dogs. They've both passed away.
Okay, well, there we go. You've now just bought an hour with your dogs who've passed away. Yay. It's a little bit morbid, but it's a nice way to end the show. The next question that Amy introduced into my show is, in the grand film of your life, because they are going to make a film of it one day, who plays Michelle?
Oh, do you know, one of my favourite actresses is Angelina Jolie.
Ooh, okay. Definitely.
I haven't got her lips, though.
That's all right. We can work on that. She wasn't born with those lips either, was she?
But yeah, Angelina Jolie, I do like her a lot.
Okay, so that's it. I've now just spent an hour with our very own resident Tomb Raider, Michelle Killoran. It's been a fascinating chat, and it's been really nice to get to know you and to hear of all the kind of experiences that have made you who you are today. And I think on behalf of everybody that's listening or watching this, keep going.
Absolutely, keep fighting. We will get our desires at the end.
Michelle, thank you very much.
My pleasure.